Oh boy, what am I getting myself into? So as the title suggests, I am analyzing every Call of Duty game, evaluating gameplay evolution, what makes the developers of Call of Duty unique, how it compares to its peers in the time period it came out in, and I'll be ranking them all just for the hell of it. I mean, everyone likes a good little tier list every now and then. I'm gonna talk about the good stuff and well, it's Call of Duty, so there's gonna be some crappy crap in it. Talking about the campaigns, the multiplayer, and any extra modes that you can think of. I'm looking right at you, zombies. And my end goal, in case anyone is wondering, is to talk about each developer in depth, all the mainline games, none of this spin-off shit. Nobody's played Roads of Victory, I don't want to hear it. And we're gonna make Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 the last Call of Duty game I'm ever gonna play. And I will explain why that is in my final video that will be all about Modern Warfare 3 and the state of Call of Duty in general. I should also clarify that while we're on this big timeline screen, that I've got it all broken up into different eras. There's the Foundation period, there's the Golden Age, there's the Dark Ages, and there's the Resurgence period. These time periods are marked by people's feelings towards COD during the game's releases. It is a generalization, and we all hate generalizations. And I know it's a generalization. Not every game in the Dark Ages I hate. And believe it or not even every game in the Golden Age do I love. You are going to hear some things you agree with and some things that you just don't agree with, and that's okay. I will also point out that I am only talking about the launch versions of these games, the free updates, and the free DLC. I am not talking about any paid DLC, because to me what matters is the $70 game. There's some amazing DLCs, but I don't think that the whole reason why you're buying a game should be for the DLC. And yes, I am looking at you, Black Ops 3. For the few people who do not know, there are three mainline Call of Duty developers, with Infinity Ward leading the cause, being known for their Modern Warfare games and for beginning the series with Call of Duty 1 and 2. Treyarch is known for their party modes, their famous characters in the Black Ops story, and for creating zombies. Sledgehammer Games is the latest developer into the series, with the benefit of being able to see everything that has come before them. They've brought their own slice of COD to the table, trying to bring something special in, and even trying to become a true contender against Treyarch and Infinity Ward. So what is Sledgehammer Games known for? Well, nothing. Except for an identity crisis.
All warfare is based on deception.
Sledgehammer Games started in 2009 and originally helped co-develop Modern Warfare 3 with Infinity Ward. While everyone is heated about them making the new Modern Warfare 3, when I heard about them making the new Modern Warfare 3, it seemed sweet, and that they would take a backseat, let the student become a teacher, and let Sledgehammer Games take over their own baby. We'll talk about the original Modern Warfare 3 in the Infinity Ward video, and talk about if it was a disappointment like people were saying at the time of the release, or if they were wrong in retrospect. But right now, we are elaborating on Sledgehammer Games, so without further ado, and with disappointment on the mind, let's fast forward to 2014. Me and my friends, between our scholarly discussions about the rise of ISIS, the Ebola outbreak, saying some incredibly offensive, outdated shock humor, or playing fucking Flappy Birds, we would be discussing the Advanced Warfare's trailer. Me having a soft spot for the live action trailer, and the joke in it about making out with a fucking goat.
We don't kiss goats!
I didn't understand that Call of Duty was brainwashing me or trying to get me to buy pay-to-win loot boxes. All I knew was Twitch shooting, hot girls, and that.
What you're seeing is Advanced Warfare.
In all out seriousness though, these live-action trailers called There's a Soldier in All of Us trailers ranged from Black Ops 1 to Infinite Warfare, and they are some of the best video game ad campaigns ever run. What started with the anybody who can be a soldier ad with random dudes running around with guns in Black Ops 1's trailer quickly became, oh, let's jam in as many celebrities as humanly possible. And that kind of misses the point of the original ad. But the Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3, the Soldier and All of Us ads, were by far the best of them all. And even though Modern Warfare 3 started the celebrity trend in these trailers, it was still tamer than Black Ops 2. I mean, I'll be honest. There's a big difference between Sam Worthington and Jonah Hill representing the jock and the nerd playing Call of Duty together versus fucking Iron Man flying around in a jet. Alas, if you laid all these trailers out in front of me, I'd be lying if I said that I disliked any of them. They are charming, they make the player feel like they could relate to the John Wick power fantasy in the multiplayer of COD, and they were a high budget enough to mimic the effects of even some big blockbusters at the time. This is one of the greatest live-action commercial runs ever, and I don't think that should be understated.
Go get him, noob.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3.
So after watching We Don't Kiss Goats for the 100th time and booting up Advanced Warfare on my Xbox 360, this was the moment of truth, of unsure excitement, since it was being made by a new developer, Sledgehammer Games. And also unsure excitement because God knows all I wanted was the next-gen version of the game on PS4. But what did my 14-year-old self think of this game? I liked it. Now, what does the 25-year-old version of myself think of this game with 10 years of intelligence, experience, and wiseness, but not maturity? I don't like it. I think it's actually kind of balls. A common trope of Sledgehammer, and you'll see this in the other games, is the emphasis on things unrelated to what makes the core game fun. They put in a lot of effort, but it's a misplaced effort. An emphasis on trying to make the games grounded while still being futuristic, talking about how they spoke to Pentagon officials or military advisors, hyping up that they want to change all of Call of Duty, but most of their efforts go into the wrong places. I said most. I will get to the stuff I like later. All of this misplaced effort feels like a vain attempt by Sledgehammer Games to create a movie rather than a video game. Everything from bringing on Kevin Spacey onto the crew for Advanced Warfare to the inspirations of World War II being Band of Brothers to even Vanguard that has over 10-minute long cutscenes and is the closest Sledgehammer has ever gotten to making a movie. Sledgehammer didn't even want to do a futuristic Call of Duty game and instead wanted to do a Vietnam Call of Duty game called Fog of War. Activision told them this was too reminiscent of previous COD games, so therefore they were stuck with the future. The biggest change to this game from the previous entries, though, is the exosuit. Sledgehammer was trying to use the game's exosuit to create variety by adding in a loadout system that gave you a different loadout every single time you played a mission in the campaign. An amazing concept that seemed to be expanded off of the previous futuristic entry with Black Ops 2. Well, it's poorly executed. My biggest complaint with this is that the previous titles let you change your loadouts for the missions, especially once you've already beat them. So having the exosuit, but not having loadout changes felt like a missed opportunity. It felt as if the developers just didn't develop the missions enough that this could even be utilized. An opportunity already seized by other titles before it. Imagine playing the game and you could go back through previous missions with your thruster pack instead of your magnet gloves, and then you could discover maybe a new area, something that you didn't see in your first playthrough. And you might be thinking that this is too much to hope for. I mean, maybe, but I feel like some of these gadgets are only here for scripted events, whereas others I'd love to interchange to my own will and help me give this sense of replayability, which this game lacks. They even added an upgrade screen at the end of each mission that you could spend skill points on. It feels tagged on, and I mean, just look at how little it is. The only thing that you're going to care about is having more health. To Sledgehammer Games' credit though, they did constantly make it known you were in the exosuit. From hovering above the ground to even the stealth sections that let you grapple people towards you to kill them like you do in Infinite Warfare. They even have a slow-mo button, which is a first for the Call of Duty series outside of breaching segments, and we're going to come back to this in future Sledgehammer games because they love this slow-mo button for some reason, and it is utilized just well enough. That's honestly how I feel about so much of Advanced Warfare. It's utilized well enough, but it doesn't really go much further than its foundation. What do the magnet gloves do? They work in one part of the mission, but yet we still show them off on the loadout screen. The thruster pack, what does that do? You can use it throughout the mission, but it will only be imported in one scripted event or in one area that's perched above a place that you need to get to. It's used once and never again. It all feels foundational and never feels developed upon to be used for the player's fun. This campaign does not exercise these loadout systems to be fun, but instead just mandatory for scripted moments in the mission. It's so cool, you got mag gloves. Oh, it's just a scripted cutscene. Whoa, a grapple hook? Wonder when I get cutscene. Whoa, hover boots? Scripted event. Whoa, mute charges? Scripted cutscene. It just feels as if they show you the only equipment you will have to try and give you this false sense of uniqueness to each mission that can only be felt in a cutscene. Is there any agency or variety in any of the other areas of the campaign? Well, kinda. They have grenades that let you swap between different settings. This is a pretty cool idea. My personal favorite being the threat sensor. You can shoot enemies that you've spotted through walls and doors, which is useful when on harder difficulties especially. If you are playing on veteran, this is a godsend. They do have some other equipment too inside the game, like riot shields and various other little gadgets that you can use in your mission, and that can be pretty fun. Mute charges are breaching charges, but they mute all of the sound in the area so you can kill everyone quickly without being heard. This conceptually as a gadget is a great idea and works as a fantastic replacement to the normal breaching segments in the previous titles. It has no agency to it whatsoever, but at least it is fun conceptually. All of our soldiers on the ground too also get an exo punch, which does cause people to go flying through the air ragdoll style, and that's tons of fun. Sadly, they tried to develop upon the foundation of just exo punching by allowing you to rip off doors. Let's check this out. I'm so weak. If somebody is dead in front of you, it'll work, but I just wish they tweaked it a bit to make this mechanic actually have a punch to it and feel responsive when you're throwing it. Also, it doesn't even throw where you want it to go. Like, it basically feels like it has bullet drop off within 2 feet. Also, it's barely in the game outside of a few segments. Like, stuff where I could rip off car doors, rip off building doors, lift up propane tanks, throw fire hydrants, that would have been really fun to deep dive into. But instead, they give you the bare minimum with the car door throw that doesn't even work, and then the exo punch, which I will admit is pretty fun. It's a barely dived into thing, just like the rest of the exosuit. Now that we got the big elephant out of the room known as the exosuit, which I'm sure will come back up again, let's get back to the actual story of the campaign that Sledgehammer wants you to think is a film. You're introduced to a guy named Mitchell and his best friend, who I don't even remember the name of. In the first cutscene, they talk to each other as if they've never met, even though they're supposed to be best friends. Oh great, they're all pre-rendered cutscenes, cool. These don't usually age well, but sometimes they work in a game if it has a cinematic or movie format to it. This game does not have that. It does not have the cinematography of a movie and probably looks the ugliest out of the 3 Sledgehammer games, with the overexposed lighting and dark contrast making it seem like it had zero budget to do the CGI whenever the camera is not on Kevin Spacey. Look how high contrast this is. You cannot even see the work they'd put into this. This looks like fucking Mirror's Edge on high brightness. Moving on though, the 2 best friends who just met each other do a mission. His friend dies, and at his funeral, press F for respect, we also stumble across the main villain, Mr. Irons. He's a corporate CEO who has privatized armies to help other countries, blah blah blah. He becomes the bad guy, wants to control the world to prevent future wars. We haven't seen that 1,000 times, with even freaking Cortana and Halo doing that. It makes an attempt for you to care about this main character, but this character is so poorly written with generic soldier dialogue spewing out of him for most of the game, and most of the players will be too distracted by Kevin Spacey's performance to even notice the other characters. The villain is the best part apart, but only because this man is so cartoonishly evil, and because the villain Irons is so cartoonishly evil. They're a match made in heaven. I could literally tell you everything I love about this game's story in 2 points. The villain is hilariously evil, and I love the part of the story where the girl is assisting you on a mission and says, "I got this one," but if you run up and you shoot the guy sleeping on the couch before she suffocates him with a pillow, she'll just throw the pillow on his face and just dismiss him entirely. That is Sledgehammer humor peaked. Actually, I want to correct myself. Another positive of this game's campaign is the difficulty system in the storyline, which is actually fairly balanced. You could play through this entire game on veteran and not feel like that you've been sentenced to a lifetime of crows eating out your liver. Probably a better euphemism would be a lifetime of playing Call of Duty Black Ops 3's campaign. In past CODs, grenade spamming is a constant detriment to the difficulty, because you will be grenade spammed, forced to leave your cover, and then be instantly obliterated. But if you decide to play this game's campaign, I would recommend it on veteran. But actually, I'm not going to do that, because there's a mission where you have to spot someone in a crowd, and it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do in a video game. They give you like 3 minutes in the normal mode, but on veteran, they gave me like 30 seconds, and it took me 30 tries to find them. I swear to God, I could not find this Where's Waldo looking asshole in the audience. I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, so let's just move on and talk about the best part of the story. The villain. This game tries everything it can to develop its villain through motivations, even though they're all one-dimensional with the exception of his dead son. They even took notes, though, from Call of Duty Ghosts that came out just a year before it. When you collect intel in a mission, it will unlock an audio log for you to listen to. The audio logs in this game are significantly better than the ones in Ghosts, though, because instead of hearing bored voice actors talk about how their lives were so much better before they started playing crappy Call of Duty games, you could hear the villains say really evil corporation psychopathic shit, and it's so entertaining. It's as entertaining as I describe it.
Give me a break. People don't want freedom. They want rules, boundaries, protections. From invaders and from themselves. People need...
You may be wondering about the environmental variety, though, which I said this game lacked. But there is some real standouts in the last few missions. There is a private corporation's version of a detainment camp, and it's stuff like this that makes me think I'm laughing with Advanced Warfare and not at it. It's a silly concept, and it's not like it's a real concentration camp or anything. That would be really offensive and not fit tonally with Call of Duty's over-the-top narratives at all. Call of Duty would never stoop that low after being such an over-the-top narrative to involve an actual concentration camp mission. Yeah, they would never do that. There's the few final missions, though, that are actually pretty fun in Advanced Warfare, and it kind of mixes up the mostly boring environments by letting you run around in an OP mech suit, and gun down people in droves. There's a part where you're missing an arm and you have to like reload using one hand and stuff, or just picking up weapons off the ground, and that's really cool. There's a couple of exceptions before the last couple missions, with one mission where you're jumping from car to car, and it's the infamous car mission, which I could not figure out how to work whatsoever. But outside of this, there's not much variety. And the variety that they do have is severely lacking. Environmental variety can be felt in the other missions just like in any other COD game, but it is so poor that it's hard for me to say that it's actual variety. Like in the game, they have stealth missions and the AI is just not smart enough. Like, I was just right in front of you, dude. What are you doing on your phone? I was literally in front of you. The stealth missions also have the laziest design choices where if you're caught, the mission immediately ends. They'll fail you when you're spotted, or they'll do that classic COD trope and pretend like they gave you some freedom by not instantly failing you, but instead quadrupling the damage output on all the enemies if you're spotted, so you instantly go down and might as well have just insta-failed instead. I have seen that in so many Call of Duty games, and I'm so sick of it. Is the laziest design. It's trying to make it seem like that you did not just insta-fail and instead just kills you anyway. I have never seen a game incorporate insta-failing with a stealth mission where it has been fun. It always feels lazy and it never fits. There's driving segments that are so boring and linear as well that try and spice things up, but they're less exciting than Call of Duty 1's driving segments. The campaign overall is just linear and restrictive for a game that was advertised on its freedom and non-restrictiveness of its exosuit. Its few standout missions are awesome, but they don't make the campaign worth it at all, especially considering all of them are like in the last 10th of the game. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare really does feel like it's walking downstairs for its entire campaign, and then at the very last second it tries to run quickly back up, but just does not make it to the top. There's also another thing entirely that makes this game's variety not even feel that distinguishable from other parts of the game, and that is the color palette. It has by far the grossest looking color palette of any one of the Call of Duty games. It's this gross yellow that is just gleaming in every segment of the game. Finally, at the end of the game, though, you kill Irons, and the character literally says, "I think this could just be the beginning. I'm so excited for Advanced Warfare 2. And well, that never happened. Going over it all, I mean, I would say the campaign fails on all fronts, but the villain is genuinely a blast to watch. The Intel audio logs gimmick does enhance the villain, and there is a few playful environments that take advantage of the futuristic private corporation setting. And the last few levels of the game at the detainment camp and in the mech suit really brought the campaign up, even if it was just a smidge. The difficulty being well done too, and it's not good by any means, and it's derivative of Sledgehammer's main problem as a studio with it not feeling confident in what it is, and it has no identity whatsoever. They have no confidence in what they wanted to make, like everything is just surface level, from the mission layouts, the story, hell even the exosuit has no further development added to them. They could have made this game a playground of agency, enjoyment, but instead they settled for promising in the marketing with the exosuit, but ultimately not delivering. And I'm sitting here saying good stuff, saying bad stuff, but if there is one thing the game gave me, it was a lot of potential. And it is one of the few COD games I would have loved to see a sequel to. Sequels work to build upon the original game, and I think if this game had a sequel, we could have seen what this game should have been. It may sound like it's the case, but sadly, the campaign isn't even the biggest problem with Advanced Warfare. The biggest problem to Advanced Warfare and to Sledgehammer as a whole is Activision. I'll get into this with multiplayer and zombies, but I feel that Activision really throws Sledgehammer under the bus just because they're the least liked of the three studios. They don't really let them discover what they want to do with their COD games, but instead force them to make games that tread the same ground as Infinity Ward or Treyarch, but with some added scummy business practices, like zombies in the game, or lack thereof. Zombies was locked behind a paywall day one. I didn't even remember this. They literally start zombies if you click on it with a whole fucking cutscene just for it to end and then them say, "Yep, sorry bro, fuck no commando, you ain't playing that." They attempt to remedy this by adding in a survival mode in their launch version, but it's just not that fun. Maybe with more people, but by itself, solo, it's not entertaining at all. There's some different game modes it tries to tackle, but if you're going to have zombies day one, then you have to have zombies available with the game on day one. The fact that we forgave this in 2014 and all purchased the shitty gold editions that you had to pre-order just to be able to play the zombies map shows how manipulated some of us were into believing that video game greed only exists today rather than when we were growing up. Video game greed has always existed. Stop pretending like it's a new thing. I know I bought it, and I remember liking the zombies to this game, but I'm just not talking about any paid content, and it was all behind a paywall. Sadly, I'm not analyzing the DLCs, so instead there's nothing to talk about in terms of zombies, because there was nothing in Advanced Warfare unless you bought the gold edition or paid for the first DLC. Survival mode does have all of the multiplayer maps included into it, and I do know about the Easter egg involving that you could technically play zombies in the survival mode. That required you to beat 50 rounds on the first 4 maps. Then on the tier 2 maps, those next 4 maps, you had to complete 75 rounds each. And then on the tier 3 maps, the next 4 maps, you had to complete 100 rounds each to finally unlock one last map where you could play some zombies on a random multiplayer map. That is so not worth my time, considering that the survival mode isn't even that fun in the first place. Ring, 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 it's time for a music round. In these rounds, I will set a timer for 1 minute and talk about the music and composer of the game really quickly. Henry Williams and Audio Machine did the soundtrack for the game. Both sound completely different. Audio Machine sounds like that. Henry Williams sounds like Henry Williams does not bring any of the futuristic oomph needed in a game like this, but Audio Machine sure does. I don't want to throw my boy Henry underneath the bus though. This man did the Shrek soundtrack and did the Chronicles of Narnia soundtrack. Give this man a listen to though, even if it doesn't come from his Advanced Warfare work. The standout songs in Advanced Warfare is Draconian Dream, another called Prototype, and another called Wars of Faith. Regardless of how good some of these songs are, I feel bad for Henry Williams, because I think he was just told to make a Modern Warfare soundtrack, which sucks. If it sounds like a Modern Warfare knockoff song, then it was probably Henry Williams, but if it sounds like someone farted into their mic, it's probably Audio Machine. God damn, it must have been frustrating composing this game. Music round done, and time to talk about stuff that isn't behind a paywall. Well, it kinda still is. It's called multiplayer. Movement is stellar. Love the strafing system that lets you believe you could change the tide of the battle just by knowing what you're doing with an analog stick. Finger that thing like no tomorrow. The map levolution can be cool at times, even if it's not fully original, with Battlefield 4 coming out the year before, so they were just obviously tagged on last minute. But it is a fun little, gimmick to the game, and they actually made multiplayer maps that complement the movement and thruster packs, even if there is a few hiccups of invisible walls every now and then. The grenades work differently in multiplayer than from the campaign, which is weird, but I know they would be OP if they just let you switch grenades on the fly. It's just another reason why every part of a Call of Duty game feels like it was made by a whole different developer, which I have never liked. But hey, each segment probably was made by a different developer. It's obnoxious because that's why no Call of Duty has any consistency across the board. You have one studio making one part of a game, another making another part, and all of these parts are never as good as the other part, and none feel like they are from the same game. The movement in Advanced Warfare's multiplayer, though, the gadgets in the multiplayer, and everything in between feels separate from the campaign and completely reworked for multiplayer. And because it's reworked, that's why the movement is stellar in multiplayer versus in campaign. You can strafe around and it doesn't even feel like it's copying and pasting the wall running from Titanfall, because there is no wall running. It's obsessed with you being able to go backwards, sideways, forwards, wherever, and go all around your opponents. Dancing around bullets, dancing around your opponents, and getting out of encounters due to how good you can use that movement. The campaign makes you feel stuck. There's no areas to fly over and no enemies ever to outsmart. You just stay hot glued to the ground. The multiplayer maps complement the movement. The other players have the exact same exosuits that you have, so therefore there actually feels like a challenge. And the maps in the multiplayer do not make you feel restricted in how much you can strafe and move around, whereas the campaign constantly does that. Now let's acknowledge the biggest elephant in the room when it comes up to multiplayer. The biggest fumble with the multiplayer is not the fault of Sledgehammer, but what Activision forced them to do, which is common theme for all three of these games that we will be discussing. I will go to the batter for Sledgehammer Games, because they did not actively want loot boxes in this game. They were not screaming, "Ooh, we want some loot boxes, yay, loot boxes, those are so much fun." Nobody at Sledgehammer wanted loot boxes, and I know this is because nobody on God's fucking green earth wants these pile of dog shit loot boxes in a game. And that's a whole other video. But the problem is that because Sledgehammer doesn't have the fame and the love of Infinity Ward or Treyarch, Activision thinks they can just bully them and get them to do all the nasty, greedy tactics for their games. I know these are also in future Call of Duty games, but my point here is that this is the first game to do it, and it was underneath Sledgehammer Games. If they don't have an identity, and if anything, if there's one thing to take away from this video, Sledgehammer has always just been in an identity crisis, with their only identity being the worst of the three companies from a COD fan perspective. It's really sad, honestly, because I think this game defines what Sledgehammer could be known for, which is crazy, sweaty, and responsive movement systems. And even the pacing in Call of Duty World War II, which we'll talk about later, shows that they are good with pacing out their multiplayer. It just doesn't work when Activision shoves in pay-to-win supply drops. I remember not minding the supply drops when I was 14, and then my friend said, "Whoa, wait, you have the speakeasy?" And all of my friends would talk about how much they hated the loot boxes. And finally, I went online and looked up the meta for what was the best weapon in the game. And it was the speakeasy, which I've been using the whole fucking game. I'm not surprised in retrospect that I didn't view this system as pay to win when I was reaping the benefits for what would take most hundreds of hours to unlock due to the luck-based loot box system. Out of this game's multiplayer, though, did come some quality game modes like Hardball, the great movement, and the Levolution, which was a copy of Call of Duty Ghosts, which was a copy of Battlefield, but we'll forgive it. But it does not forgive the rest of this game, though, or make it worth playing. I didn't hate all my time with it, but it is one of the worst CODs I have played. If there was one positive thing I could end on, though, is that I would want to see a sequel to this game so badly. No loot boxes, modern engine, similar exo movement, zombies at launch with no paywall, and just go nuts with it. Sledgehammer Games also wants to be known for being the storytelling Call of Duty company that can tell these movie epic scale stories, and they don't really ever get to that point until much later in this video. I think it's safe to say that multiplayer is the best thing about this game. The pacing in the multiplayer is so good, the movement is great, and I think these are things that could come to define Sledgehammer Games if they're actually given the opportunity by Activision to shine. Activision has always held them down all the way back to when they presented a Vietnam Call of Duty idea, and over again they just forced them to put in greedy practices, which literally I think if you took those out, Advanced Warfare would be significantly improved. Literally taking out loot boxes and having zombies not behind a paywall fixes half the issues with this game. It could have possibly helped Sledgehammer Games find their footing and be able to figure out where they belong amongst all these head honcho other studios who are known for their characters, the contributions that they've given to the franchise, or the mastering of the gameplay formula years ago. Sadly, that never came true though, and their identity crisis was only reaffirmed in the next game that they created for Call of Duty that was just trying to recapture the foundation period of Call of Duty 1, 2, and 3, which Sledgehammer Games had nothing to do with in the first place. Right now, I'd actually just want to talk about Glenn and Michael for a second, who are both the co-founders of Sledgehammer Games. Both these guys worked together on Dead Space, and they also worked together on the From Russia with Love game by EA, which I used to play as a child. Glenn and Michael were both working in video games for a very long time before Dead Space, with Glenn even being one of the head people on a game like Gex. Glenn and Michael, when they moved over to make Sledgehammer Games and then presented to Activision that they wanted to make them a third-person Call of Duty game before Modern Warfare 3 came out, they were months deep into development on that game, and then they had to scrap it because Infinity Ward had a scuffle that made them lose some employees, and then Glenn and Michael and Sledgehammer Games had to go and help out Infinity Ward with finishing up Modern Warfare 3. This prevented them from realizing the third-person project that would have been a Call of Duty game as well, and probably prevented Activision from wanting to move forward on that after seeing that they were capable of making a first-person game after they helped out with Modern Warfare 3. Their third-person style Call of Duty game was going to be similar to Uncharted, which is very reminiscent of the idea they pitched to them before making Advanced Warfare, where they wanted to make a Call of Duty Vietnam game that was going to be styled after Uncharted. That explains what Sledgehammer Games was doing before they made Advanced Warfare and before they made Modern Warfare 3. I see Glenn and Michael in interviews, and the way I think about them is that they are more businessmen than they are game artists. Glenn is obviously more of the artist type of person than Michael is, but they are both at their core businessmen. Glenn and Michael both left Activision around 2018-2019. This is a businessman who made Sledgehammer Games, got Activision to buy Sledgehammer Games, and now he's off on his next endeavor to try and replicate what he did with Dead Space, since there was a void of no Dead Space up until the remake just came out. Michael left Activision, he went to go work with 2K and started with his own studio with 2K. And to me, I see these guys and I think they caught lightning in a bottle on Dead Space. I don't think they're not talented. I actually think they have a lot of talent to their name. It's obvious. But I do think Dead Space could have just been a lightning in a bottle situation that maybe that's the way it's always going to be. So let's move forward to 2017 with Call of Duty World War II. Sledgehammer Games at this point was desperately trying to bring Call of Duty into the cinematic era of gaming that started with games like Uncharted, Halo, etc. Hell, this can even be seen with them being the first Call of Duty game to have pre-rendered cutscenes, and it can even be seen all the way back to their Call of Duty Vietnam idea because they literally wanted it to be styled off of Uncharted and be inspired off of the Uncharted series. There's been loading screens that have been pre-rendered before, but never story-based Call of Duty character cutscenes. Wouldn't be surprised if this was the same exact reason they got Troy Baker, who did Joel from The Last of Us, to do Mitchell in Advanced Warfare. But even when all cards are played in their favor to make successful stories, they just don't have the writers, and that can be seen here with World War II, which is a total mess. And even with Vanguard, that isn't interesting at all, even if it does have the cinematography and the animation that can make for a great story. Call of Duty World War II may be Sledgehammer's best game, but it's nowhere near what they're aiming for with a well-written film-like story or just a plain old fun Call of Duty game. Going back and editing this, I realize I really dunk on this game, and I want to give a heads up before you hear me dunk on it. I do like this more than Advanced Warfare. We have conflicting information on whether or not if Sledgehammer Games wanted to make a World War II game or not. From what I can gather, this is the timeline of what happened. Advanced Warfare came out and was a decent success, or what can be referred as to a decent success when it comes to a franchise that every single year makes #1 selling game of the year. It was most likely made to be futuristic by Activision, and Sledgehammer probably wanted to do a World War II game, as stated by an Advanced Warfare dev. After the success of Advanced Warfare, and after making an amazing movement system that they would love to develop upon, after Black Ops 3 came out, though, the reception was mixed on the futuristic setting, and Advanced Warfare 2 had a demo created for Activision. The demo was created, given to Activision, and then a bombshell happened with Infinite Warfare's announcement. The most disliked trailer on YouTube, and if Sledgehammer Games was not already working on a World War II game, then you bet your ass that Activision was kicking down their door and holding them at gunpoint to change everything from Advanced Warfare 2 to a World War II game, taking every asset that they came up with and switching it to World War II assets. This is only reaffirmed by an old dev that does confirm that Advanced Warfare 2 did have a demo ready for Activision before they shifted focus to the World War II game. I mean, hell, like, Activision wanted to sell this game on being a World War II game so badly that they literally called the game Call of Duty World War II. Some can only imagine what an Advanced Warfare 2 would have been. This just will never exist, and I promise you on that. There is no possible way they will ever make an Advanced Warfare 2. It's gone the way of Ghost 2, or even the past Call of Duty games that never even got created, like the ancient Rome Call of Duty game we were gonna get after Modern Warfare. It was scrapped so early in development that Advanced Warfare 2 will never see the light of day, and all that's left of it is a wasteland. World War II. One of our own nostalgia, and one of corporate greed. Call of Duty World War II may be striving to be a balance between nostalgic and filled with corporate interference, but it is Sledgehammer's best game. But it could have actually had been a great game. Let's start with the story. The game starts off with you storming the beaches of Normandy. Okay, cool. We got a Medal of Honor intro. Medal of Honor Frontline Assault or something, I think is what it was called. Except the game decides to show you in this moment that A, the difficulty of Veteran is broken. Glad to know they got that out of the way immediately, so I did not play on Veteran. And B, you are doing the tutorial. So you either die immediately on Veteran and lower the difficulty. If you lower the difficulty though, it's not even intense anymore because you're being told how to duck because it's a tutorial when in the middle of gunfire from MG42s and from bunkers above you. It's supposed to be this last resort situation that's supposed to be so intense, so filled with fear, but it completely lacks any of that unless you're on Veteran, which is just destroyed broken in this game. The campaign is trying to capture the feel of Call of Duty 1 with med kits, the grit with the storyline that even takes you to dark places like concentration camps, but it fails entirely between these gritty moments. It's as over the top and ridiculous as 99% of other Call of Duties that you play any other day during the week. And the fact that you're doing your little tutorial parts and scripted QTE moments during fucking D-Day does not help the case of your game being tonally deaf. This game is the definition of that phrase, tonally deaf. But for now, let me just sprinkle in a scene where your main character says that not all Nazis were bad guys, and then refuses to elaborate.
Hey, son.
Nah, it's a crowd.
Daniels is right. They're not all bad.
Why a military World War II American soldier is standing up and actively defending Nazis. Sledgehammer has spoken about wanting to tackle heavy subject matter, but they refuse to do anything present day for some weird reason. They said subject matter on organizations like ISIS would be too risky, but it's not risky to defend Nazis and display fucking concentration camps in your game. In your Call of Duty game. Problem is not you, Sledgehammer. The problem is that Call of Duty lacks the maturity and the tonal aptitude to even be able to tackle dark subject matters like this. The prelude to every dark scene and to every scene of deep subject matter in this game, the prelude to all of it is always an over-the-top Michael Bay action scene. I know Call of Duty has always been known for occasionally overstepping the line and creating controversy in their video games, but it's always been in the way of fiction, like No Russian. People can say that No Russian is polarizing, especially when the game came out only 8 years after 9/11, but it was fully fictional. This is real. This is a real event, this is real stuff, and you want to talk about it in a game where I just got done being John Wick for the last fucking 30 minutes. It would be the equivalent of me going on go-karts, going to play laser tag, and then showing up to a Holocaust museum dressed up in a Revenge of the Sith hoodie. It's tonally death. There's a reason why every modern warfare game calls the country Uzbekistan, but we'll get back to all of that later. Now back to the story. World War II starts with you playing as the average Joe Schmo soldier who has a southern accent that would only be complemented by Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift's main character.
I'm damn sure gonna try.
Seen 10-second cars? Well, say hello to the 2-second car.
You have a commander who goes slowly insane due to knowing he has caused so many people to die, but he also still wants to win the war. And I know that's a neutered description, but to be honest, it's not very interesting, and mostly just mimics Band of Brothers whenever it can. The major point I want you to get from this part right here is that the game wants you to take all of this, your relationship with the other soldiers, without irony, take it as you would the Band of Brothers TV show, but do it in between these absolutely insane, over-the-top Avengers action set pieces. From the D-Day tutorial stuff, to the train mission, to the driving, to the plane segments, to the all-out bridge warfare at the end of the game, it is adorably over the top. Let's get into my hot take, even though I don't know if it's actually a hot take or not, but I am happy that they brought health packs back. Hold on. I am politician Tyler. Please wait for me to explain. I actually think that the health packs would have even helped out multiplayer. Give me a minute to explain. I am a contrarian, but please let me explain my point. I like it when these games try new things because considering that the formulaic Call of Duty is so fucking bland that even slightly changing the health system feels like a brand new game. I like the exosuit in the last game, that was new. No surprise that I like health packs here. Health packs allow for a sense of fear to your health. They actually really complement the World War II setting well, especially in the serious moments that Sledgehammer wants you to feel. It's another thing on your screen to keep track of, and allows you to be more immersed in the gruesomeness of World War II on a multiplayer or campaign level. I know they are not in multiplayer, but I will further elaborate, I promise. I also think that adding health packs to the multiplayer would make the game feel like it was made by the same developer across the board. Like, why in Call of Duty World War II is there a different health system for campaign, for multiplayer, and for zombies? Like, you have the regular health pack system in campaign, you have regenerative health in multiplayer, and then you have this weird armor system in zombies. And in my personal opinion, the health packs would have been the best suited for this type of game anyway, which is gritty, authentic, real, and trying to show off the terrifying side of World War II, even if it does not succeed at that. I know some people might try to tell me why it wouldn't work, why it would be out of balance, or how we don't know how to implement it, so don't do it. I can promise you it would not feel as broken as Advanced Warfare's pay-to-win system. Blather me anyway, because I'm going to tell you about how I think they could fit in. Health packs are spread across certain areas where you spawn across the map and people drop them on their dead bodies. You can hold up to 3 of them in one life. This adds a sense of objective and reward for being able to kill your opponent, take his health packet, and use one of those health packets to heal yourself after the battle. But also means that nobody could just run away from another player and just regen health automatically. You would have to actually take the time to put on your stuff and re-heal yourself. You need to pick one up and apply it, or use the only one that you just spawned with. This could be implemented to great effect and add an element that has never been in COD since Call of Duty 1 and Call of Duty Big Red 1. But alas, I'm talking about the multiplayer and what the multiplayer could have been when we are just on the campaign. So now it feels like different parts of this video were written by a different human being. I am taking notes from Activision. Like Advanced Warfare, it lacks the level variety that would make it stand up there as one of the better COD World War II shooters, such as World at War or COD 2. There's barely changes from the standard walk into an area, shoot some guys, massive action scripted event happens, and on to the next town area. There's a plane sequence that feels half-assed, but it's different, so I'll count it, I guess. COD has always been about giving you loads of variety in every mission, and this game just does not have that. Every mission usually has a gimmick, and it will never feel as well developed as other games that it was inspired by, but it's because of that so much variety objective that this game has, and that the Call of Duty games have in general, that you don't really give a shit if it's not fully developed in the moment. You will see more of what I'm talking about when we talk about the best COD campaigns in the series, but for right now, flatter me with this example with the new Modern Warfare 2. You have a survival crafting mission, a multiple equipment recon mission that you can approach in a few different ways. You have an Uncharted ripoff mission, and none of these missions are as well developed as the games they are based on, but so much is going on and you're constantly changing up with that variety that you kind of forget that it isn't the most thought out thing ever. For World War II, the plane part is fun. A few missions are solid, but when it's trying to be serious like an old Call of Duty game, it can just never get its head out of its ass about being some over-the-top dumb shit as well, like a modern Call of Duty game. When I talk about how much something is developed, you look at something like Advanced Warfare, where every single mission feels like the exact same thing and nothing feels developed upon because you're only using things in scripted events. So the difference between that variety is that most of that variety comes in scripted events or very specific moments in a campaign mission, whereas the variety in a lot of better Call of Duty games may still be somewhat half-assed, but you can still have agency with it. You can still, craft a bunch of different items in this level in MW2. You can still jump from car to car to car and get inside cars, even if it is half-assed. You do that for the entire mission, and it's a blast. Whereas this game feels at least pretty developed, but it does not have any variety. But hey, the gore's back, and oh, it's so nice. My second favorite gore in the whole series, with the first being World at War. It's sad too though, because I'm kind of distracting myself with the gore system because there's not that much to say about the storyline. The banter between the main characters is so generic. They do like the cliche soldier stuff where they talk about college or like their parents wanting them out of the house. It all feels like a really shitty knockoff of Band of Brothers. But eventually in the storyline, the best friend does go missing and you have no idea where he could be at, but we'll get to that in a moment. We're going to be talking about the tonal edges of this game for a while, and another thing that allows this game not to feel like it can mimic the grit of World War II is who decided on planet Earth to make Call of Duty World War II look like a fucking Simpsons episode. Look at World War II games or even movies of the past. Hell, even Band of Brothers. None of it is colorful. You remember when I said that Advanced Warfare had the most disgusting color palette ever because it's yellow and it's nasty and nothing ever looks colorful at all? They should have swapped these two color palettes. The color palette in Advanced Warfare should be colorful. The color palette in World War II, especially if it's taking itself seriously, should be gross. Look at games like Fallout, Battlefield, Gears of War 1 and 2, and even the old Call of Duty World at War and Call of Duty 2 games. They never look this colorful. The other thing that emphasizes this game's gap between its serious moments and its over-the-top, colorful action is the fact that they brought slow-mo back from Advanced Warfare. Because Sledgehammer loves the slow-mo, and I said we were going to get it back around to it, and now we are. And that's because you can slow-mo in World War II. But why? It does not fit in the game setting at all. You will not use it that often. And I don't even feel the need to elaborate on that. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, who wants to hear in the authentic, historically accurate, realistic, oh, we want it to feel gritty like other World War II movies, but we're also gonna add slow motion. That emphasizes that gap between over the top and its serious moments, and that gap that keeps the game from feeling consistent ever. I didn't really want to talk about it, but we're gonna have to talk about the big macho problem for me. After everything I've said, you get done with a massive, colorful shootout where you're John Wick running around doing slow motion, killing hundreds of Nazis, and you find out finally where your friend is. You're having this badass fight, and now cutscene. You're at a fucking concentration camp. Sledgehammer Games, really, Activision, really, running around in an action film, and then it becomes an Auschwitz documentary. They have you walk around with a black and white camera taking pictures of a concentration camp. Like, how fucking not self-aware are you? Like, you can't do that. Like, that's not how these types of things can be handled in a video game's context. You can't just be screaming and then all of a sudden act like you're the quiet, mature game that you want to be. But at least you're going to the camp to save your friend and you realized he passed away. You realized he passed away, and this shows off the seriousness of these camps and how so many people died here, suffered, and it's not just a happy ending that you can just get just because it's your friend. It was a tragic event, and this game wants you to acknowledge it by showing you that your friend died here. Nope, wait, he's alive. Fuck. After you're done taking pictures for the concentration camp documentary that they were trying to create, you walk out into the woods next to the camp and find your friend fighting the main Nazi bad guy. You have got to be fucking kidding me. You shoot the main Nazi bad guy, you save your friend, and he gets to live happily ever after, and you guys get a little happy ending. Are you fucking kidding me? Now, do you understand what I mean when I say tonally deaf and identity crisis? Call of Duty was founded on the realistic portrayal of war. It was supposed to counteract Medal of Honor. It was originally made by Medal of Honor devs even, who came over and wanted to make this cool, realistic portrayal of war. Modern Warfare 2007 emphasized this by being the first game that took modern combat that shows off the horrors of modern warfare. And 2019, Modern Warfare only emphasized this, with the exception of the Highway of Death mission, which we will get into in the Infinity Ward video. I don't want to even talk about that right now. It feels like Sledgehammer, though, wanted to bring this aspect back to COD, tackling the harsh realities of war and making an example for young people to understand it better and not ignore the history of it. And I mean, hell, the voice acting in this game is actually really fucking good. They obviously really like the voice actor Josh Duhamel, though, because Glenn brought him back in Callisto Protocol as the main character. But you cannot have your cake and eat it too, especially with topics this serious. The developer speaks on the Holocaust in the game and talks about how games are growing up, which I agree with, 100%. Mature narrative-driven games have always been around, but especially in a post-The Last of Us world, they have been growing exponentially. My opinion is that this would have to be an entirely different game if you were going to be able to pull off something like this, and it just sounds like you did it just because you like Band of Brothers, and they did it, so now you have to do it. They want to say video games have grown up, but this final battle with the big bad Nazi before having the happy ending out of the concentration camp feels like one step forward and 10 steps backwards. I might be alone on this because recently, very recently, Holocaust survivors were playing with streamers Call of Duty World War II to teach kids about the event. I bring this part up because I'm just trying to show that there are different perspectives on the way this game treated this subject matter. And I tell my perspective on here, but I don't want you to feel like you need to exclusively subscribe to my opinion or even someone else's opinion. There are people who do like the way the subject matter was treated in this game. I just personally do not. Now that I'm finally done with that, let's get back to the campaign, which is fine. It's okay once you get past the tonal mess that it is and that it just cannot take itself that seriously, but it also cannot be a fun COD game. It cannot pick one lane to be in. It's not underdeveloped like Advanced Warfare, but it does lack the variety that other Call of Duty games have had. The campaign is also better than Advanced Warfare in this one because of the music round. Hill 493, Shadow Under the Mountain, and Brotherhood of Heroes theme are the best songs in this game. The theme absolutely slaps. Some of these songs are just bangers, and they're all composed by Wilbert Rodgett. The one that shines the most to me is that amazing, dreary, dark, gritty, wasteland theme for World War II. In a good way. It's disgusting and I love it. It's sad that other aspects of the game are tonally deaf because this music is not. And it works great for the desolate war zone of uncredited soldiers who lie dead in the mud. It's sad, it's somber, and I love it. Music round is done though. You know what time it is, right? Yeah, the hub world was kind of a dumb idea. You can look at people opening loot boxes and 1v1 people or watch shitty training videos, and it's the most laughably pathetic thing I've ever seen. It's even more laughably pathetic when you remember that most of the stuff that you would get from the loot boxes was just duplicates of previous skins but with a new name. They had so many duplicates with different names just to fill up space to make you want to buy more loot boxes so you could actually get a rare item. And oh, Activision, I knew you would pop up again in this Sledgehammer video, being the sole reason why they just can't do whatever the fuck they want, and instead they're being told by you what to do. Sledgehammer did try to show that they cared for this game though, and I will acknowledge that. They reworked the whole perk and division system in this game after launch, 6 months after launch, for free, because of the criticism of it. This is not unheard of in the gaming sphere, but this is unheard of in the Call of Duty gaming sphere. This was months after the game launched, and that is just a rarity for a Call of Duty game to have that big of an overhaul 6 months after release. The loot box system in this game isn't pay to win though, which is the one thing I will give it credit for. And I'll be honest, dear God, they are far more obnoxious in this game than they are in Advanced Warfare. With you being able to like see other people open up theirs in the hub world, you have to like go through this whole process to be able to open it. It's really annoying. Call of Duty World War II is actually one of the better COD games in regards to pacing on the multiplayer map. A lot of Call of Duty games find it hard to strike this balance, like Modern Warfare 2019 feels like you move too slow, but you also don't die really fast. Whereas Modern Warfare 3 2023, you move super fast, but you also die really fast. To me in this game, you felt fast, but you didn't die fast, which is what most of these games should strive to feel like. That comes down to the way the maps are formatted, how fast your character actually goes, how fast you die, a bunch of factors, and I think this game strikes it pretty perfectly. The pacing is so good, especially for a boots on the ground title, which was hard to honor, but I get why people wanted it back after the futuristic ride that we were all on. I love the dirt effects and how gross everything looks on the map. I remember having a lot of fun on War Mode, even if it was a copy of Rush from Battlefield. And I think really if you look at these games from the perspective of, oh, this game is just a copy of this other game, then you'll find yourself hating 90% of FPS multiplayer games in general. It's easy to point at something and say, wow, that just sucks because they were just doing what this thing did. But it's harder to see what maybe this game did differently from the game that it copied that could be really good. Without Fortnite, Tetris 99 would not exist. And I'll be honest, Tetris 99 is a killer-ass game. It might be my favorite Battle Royale game. I know people might be wondering what I think of War Mode nowadays as an adult, but I can't really talk about it. There's just not really anybody playing it anymore. I just remember thinking it was an enjoyable distraction, but nobody really plays it, so unless I get on and do bot mode, then I don't think I'm going to be able to play it. The maps in this game weren't too rough either. Some were bad, like Gustav Cannon. Most of these maps, like Flak, were memorable and fun enough to even 6 years later when I hopped back on, I still knew them all from heart, which is pretty impressive. The new division system was interesting and added a sense of replayability to the multiplayer if you wanted to try out each different division that specialized in all kinds of different stuff. I personally preferred the flame shotgun guys, the exterminator class, and I never tried any of the others, so I cannot speak on this at all. I didn't try any of the others, but I do appreciate the effort given into letting there be some replayability that other people can try out different divisions. Multiplayer is fast-paced, it's fun, it's one of the better Call of Duty multiplayers, especially in the dark ages of Call of Duty, and it's probably the reason why this is Sledgehammer's best game. But that could change with Call of Duty Vanguard or Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. I must emphasize too with the zombies that we are not talking about DLCs in this review. So I am going off the one zombies map that's at launch, and it was really mediocre. Not bad, but really mediocre. The developers who worked on Dead Space back in the day talked about how they were going to reach for the horror roots of zombies. They didn't want to make it as fun as the other zombies or as arcadey, but they wanted it to be more horror. This just goes along with the identity crisis that Sledgehammer already had. It tries to be fun, campy, entertaining like previous zombie games, but then shoehorns in horror elements that either make the game feel too slow or just downright annoying. Everything from the slow start because they're trying to build up the tension, and it feels way too easy, to even the random jump scares from zombies falling out of the sky. It's just annoying. It's not scary, and I'm surprised to see such a low ball of a shot from the Dead Space designers. I got on this zombies map and I felt like I did everything in the span of 30 minutes. To explain myself, by the way, I tend to be a simple zombies guy. I don't really care about the Easter eggs, albeit I will be doing some of them, especially in the Treyarch games. I tend to enjoy it just as an arcade shooter, survive the waves, no winning, and last as long as you can. The biggest problem from Call of Duty Zombies only doing that is that it can get repetitive and boring, and it can just become a sit in the corner at round 20 and racking up kills and not having any variety to that. For zombies though, my major pet peeve is that if progression and necessities are tied to doing an Easter egg, unlocking a necessity like Pack-a-Punch or perks should not be behind a YouTube video for me to learn how to do it. You can have Easter eggs, hell, you can even beat zombies, I don't care, but just do it through Easter eggs. The cons of this is the repetition of the Easter egg itself. You just constantly are just doing the exact same thing over and over and over. You'll probably be watching walkthroughs more often than you'll actually be playing the map. And for this reason, my favorite maps in the series are the World at War maps, the Black Ops 1 maps, and that's pretty much it. Moon, Ascension, and Kino are great examples of maps with Easter eggs, but they do not hinder you from getting necessities. The Zombies maps too have a very distinct look to them always, and I cannot tell you anything about the look to the World War II map outside of industrial. I could tell you Keener do Toten looks like a movie theater. I could tell you that Der Riese looks like one of those Wolfenstein, big, massive, experimental, semi-futuristic Nazi laboratory areas. I cannot tell you what the World War II zombie map looks like. It just looks dry, bland, and like it's trying to mimic horror vibes but can never quite get to there. This map was trying to have puzzle stuff to it, but it all feels so simple that it was more like you were just doing objectives around the map and then you're done. And at times, it just felt way too easy, even on solo. And I can imagine if you are an Easter egg zombie player, this will not be your cup of tea. They still have the problem with health and everything, and it feels like it's an entirely different game that was made by an entirely different developer, but I'll be honest. A part of this feeling like an entirely different game is that it also has a zombies progression system, and I do not care for these. I have never cared for these, and I never will. I already got a lot on my plate, dude. I don't care about zombie supply drops. Yeah, they tried to add jump scares, which aren't really that scary. They're just annoying because you'll be running from 30 zombies that you'll be training, and then one falls out of the sky right in front of you, which breaks up the flow of the game. It's not a jump scare. It just breaks up the flow. And yeah, that's basically it. Everything else is standard zombie stuff. You got your perks, which feel nerfed in this game. Everything feels too easy already. The armor system is super OP. I mean, it's not as easy as Black Ops 3 zombies, but it's also not as hard as Spaceland zombies, which might be my personal favorite in the Dark Ages. And I know it sounds like I'm just crapping all over the game, but this is one of the better titles from the Dark Ages. And I do want to give credit where credit's due. The movement is great, the pacing is great, the maps are great, and the multiplayer is the best of the 3 Sledgehammer games. And it's probably my favorite Sledgehammer game still, but we will see about that, because we still got one game left. If you already made it this far, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and I'll probably ask this again at the end of the video, but in case I don't, which one of these games from the Dark Ages is your favorite? Did you have a most underrated pick from this pile of Vanguard, Advanced Warfare, World War II, or an underrated pick from the Dark Ages? Dark Ages is just more of a description for COD and the way it was being received at the time. But now we are flying at the speed of light. JK, at the speed of a World War II fighter out of this period, and we are going to talk about the most hated game in the resurgence period that lasts from 2019 to currently 2023 and present day. So with Glenn and Michael leaving Sledgehammer Games and Sledgehammer Games now expanding out more and more, making new studios, how does Call of Duty Vanguard go without them? Now, let me be clear. If the Dark Ages continued and the reception that Call of Duty was getting at the time of releases continued, Call of Duty would have fell out of being the #1 spot. 2019's Modern Warfare recovered that, and therefore this is the resurgence period. You can say however much shit you want about Warzone 2 or Vanguard, but that doesn't change the fact that Infinite Warfare's trailer was the most disliked video on YouTube. Nobody was ever excited about Black Ops 4 before release, or Infinite Warfare, and then Ghost was just a disappointment, and all of these games were met with hate. That new engine, though, is what rejuvenated the interest in Call of Duty. And yes, I do know that Cold War does not fully use it, and does not use it at all, I don't think, but I don't care. They look nearly identical, and the average general audience member would not know that it does not use the Modern Warfare 1 engine. I'm gonna be honest, too. I don't really care about all, like, the little things that people get up in arms about that really make them hate or like a multiplayer or one of the games in general. Like slide canceling. Like, I'm gonna be honest, sport. I don't know what slide canceling is, and I don't care. I care more about the designs of these maps and what makes the game fun. Does the game look good? Is it a tonal mess? And most importantly, does the game achieve what it set out to do? Which is why I critiqued Call of Duty World War II, because it sets out to be a serious World War II shooter, and it fails at that. And usually in the case of most CODs, it's to create a fun FPS that can appeal to all demographics. Does Vanguard succeed at being a fun FPS that can appeal to all demographics? Zombies lovers, multiplayer fanatics, and even story-based lovers? The answer may surprise you, as a big fat no, it does not at all. Sledgehammer Games just accomplished their identity crisis for the third and last time before Modern Warfare 3 comes out, and it looks like they'll continue doing it with Modern Warfare 3, considering everything about that game is banking on nostalgia for a game that Sledgehammer had nothing to do with. They will be once again shoved down to the sub-COD developer status to churn out some other nostalgia-driven trip because Activision just will not let them do what they want to do. They are not the party game developer, that's Treyarch. They aren't the competitive shooter developer who started everything, that's Infinity Ward. They're just Sledgehammer. A company that seems hell-bent on a cinematic focus and on movement and pacing, where one falters because of bad writing and the other falters because of Activision interference, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt because there is some things in Vanguard that they do exceedingly well. And honestly, if it was not for other areas of the game lacking, this would be their definitive COD game to me versus any other COD game they made. You want to know what separates Vanguard from World War II or Advanced Warfare? It's the campaign. This campaign has the cleanest cutscenes in the series, hands down. And I don't know if they use the same animators on every game, but the cinematographer has to be different for Vanguard. There's no possible way you can get this level of depth, visual storytelling from other cinematographers that have helped out in Call of Duty. Some of the cutscenes look like a movie and even reach up to being around 10 minutes long. Even if you aren't truly invested, it really does feel like they're putting their all into making a film. So I applaud, if not Sledgehammer's animators who make their cutscenes and the cinematographer specifically with Vanguard. The cinematographer's name is, I think I'm going to pronounce this right, Hoyt van Hoytema, who worked as the cinematographer on Christopher Nolan film. And that definitely explains why the cinematography looks better. Even without the cinematography though, the animation is by far the best it has ever looked out of the 4 new games and has ever looked in the entire series. Another heavy hitting point that Sledgehammer always can nail is pacing. One move that they made, which was stupid but also good, was that they added the addition of tactical versus blitz in multiplayer. And this choice allowed you to do the slow, methodical COD type that was more akin to competitive, which you could do in tactical, or if you wanted a loud, chaotic game of old COD, which was more like Blitz, and that felt more like older Call of Duty multiplayers. The only reason why I say this was a dumb move as well was because it splits the player base in half, even though it was a good idea. And because it splits the player base in half, it's easier for me to find a game on Call of Duty 3 than it is for me to find one on Call of Duty Vanguard, which came out almost 20 years after Call of Duty 3. I mentioned earlier, though, that Vanguard does not deliver on being good for everyone, but does it excel at anything? Well, sadly, no. It does stuff exceedingly well in terms of its animations and in terms of some of its campaign qualities, but is the campaign or multiplayer or zombies on its own excelling? No. It has an above average campaign, and I can confidently say that it is the best campaign that Sledgehammer has delivered by far. It's kind of goofy and doesn't take itself too seriously, so when the goofy stuff happens in the World War II setting, it is more accepting, whereas the 2017 COD World War II game, it feels tonally deaf. It attempts to have this contrasting attitudes in the ensemble cast vibe, where everyone's constantly bickering and insulting each other, and then retelling stories, and that adds to the fun as well. The story has to do with Nazis losing the war, and now you are killing off the last remnants of the Nazis who are trying to escape Germany. Each member of the team has a different backstory, which you get to play through in each mission of the game that defines their backstory. This all accumulates in the eventual Avengers team-up of the whole team, where they get to work together to kill off the remaining zombies. I mean Nazis. Zombies is later. Now, I can understand why somebody would prefer Call of Duty World War II's campaign. It definitely takes itself more seriously than this one, and I can't even tell if Vanguard is taking itself unintentionally not serious, or it is intentionally being kind of goofy at times with its characters. But all I know is that if Glenn and Michael were in charge of this game, it probably would not be nearly as unintentionally funny and not serious as it is. where Call of Duty World War II tries to strike the Band of Brothers seriousness, Call of Duty Vanguard tries to strike a Inglourious Bastards not seriousness. They also heavily improve the veteran difficulty in this one versus Call of Duty World War II. It might even be the best out of the 3 games. The only competition would be Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, but this one might have my favorite veteran mode. The cutscenes are long and usually really well made, but you can't help but feel like they're almost too long. I mean, dude, like, there's some of the longest cutscenes I've played in a game in recent memory. If these could have been condensed in terms of the information they are providing, I think these would have just been a lot better. I'm all down for long shots, amazing camera work, but the story just doesn't feel deep enough to justify these lengthy cutscenes, even with the incredible visuals that are mostly movie-like in their presentation. It wouldn't bother me if I didn't care about the story. Like in Doom Eternal, I'll just skip the cutscenes because, yeah, like, I don't care and I just want to skip them. But Vanguard really wants you to care about its story, and it just isn't succeeding in being investing. It succeeds in tone, though, and that's better than the last 2 games combined in terms of their storytelling. It also succeeds in creating some exciting missions with the game, throwing you into a train battle right from the get-go where you jump freely between these 2 trains. Soon after this, you kind of have an epiphany where you're realizing that the game just doesn't have a lot of mission variety, which you've heard a lot in this video for the past 2 COD games. It has more probably than the previous 2 combined, with an obvious sniper mission, a survival mission that segues into a bombing run, and even some other highlights. Even in the bombing run mission, you go in and out of the atmosphere, and that is awesome, even if it's a little bit more restrictive than the previous game's plane mission. The presentation is so unique in Call of Duty Vanguard's bombing run mission that it makes for a more memorable experience. This mission variety is probably due to the fact how the game is structured in terms of story, with playing every single character's backgrounds, allowing you to have different experiences in each mission. It's not enough, but this game does stand above its peers as having a pretty good campaign. Now let's get it over with. The repeating thing that Sledgehammer has kept over all 3 of their games, the only thing they have kept over all 3 of their games for some reason, and that is the slow motion, which they have brought back again in full force. I would think I would hate it because it's World War II, but I actually like it here, and I'm going to explain why. I think Sledgehammer wanted Call of Duty Vanguard to have the variety of Advanced Warfare's loadout system, which can only be used in scripted events, but they wanted to actually live up to the hype on having different loadouts. But there is no futuristic technology in World War II, so in place of the gadgets that would be futuristic, they added just special abilities for each character that's telling a story. This really spices up some of the mission variety because one of the characters who tells a story has slow motion, just like the other 2 games, except in this one it's basically aimbot. It looks really funny though if you time it right. These special abilities with the chasing leftover Nazi concept is fun enough to make for some goofy stuff that works in the game's favor, rather than having a scene where I kill 500 Nazis on a bridge and then immediately following it up with a concentration camp documentary. The slow-mo and the abilities work in this one due to the game not taking itself as seriously, unlike the previous World War II title. It also helps that Sledgehammer added more environments into this one and even took us to Japanese battles in World War II, which we haven't done since World at War, I believe. I'm going to mention a minor misstep in the gameplay though, and that is the idea of getting rid of QTEs. I don't really like QTEs, but they get you out of insta-kill scenarios, like in Modern Warfare when a dog jumps on you, or World at War when somebody tries to hit you with a bayonet. Infinite Warfare had the spider grenades that would crawl up your face and you had to rapidly click on square on them. Vanguard had the bright idea of taking out all that stuff to make the game feel more new, but if somebody bayonet charges you, they just instant kill you. This would be a much bigger issue in the campaign if it was frequently done and happened throughout the game on several missions, but luckily, it's only in a couple of missions. Like, bro, come on, COD. Even Metroid Dread has a way to get out of insta-deaths, and that game is trying to be far more challenging than fucking Vanguard. There's not really much else to say though. The campaign's pretty good. It's not the most memorable thing ever. I'll probably never play it ever again, but I will remember its film-like qualities. I will remember that every mission is just a different person's backstory and the culmination of it all at the very end when all the team members fight against the Nazis. It's fun. It's pretty goofy. I'm not a big pre-rendered cutscene guy, but I do have so much respect for the writers, the cinematographer, and the animators who all really went in to make this the definitive Call of Duty storyline. All in all, keep the cinematographer, keep the animators, because a good COD with this work put into it would be fantastic. I tend to prefer in-game cutscenes, but if you're trying to make a movie and it looks this good at times, then I'm totally content with this. Music round. The music in this game is done by Bear McCreary, so it's great. All right, we're done. No, but in all out seriousness, this is the guy who did the God of War soundtrack, the Godzilla King of the Monsters soundtrack, so it's this big drum-heavy soundtrack that sounds like arriving Viking ships more so than a World War II soundtrack. Standouts are like the song Bombing Run, where it works into extreme effect in the mission where you're trying to steal a plane, where there's all this build-up to the song, there's all this build-up. But also, the theme of the game is epic and massive in scale, and that just complements the game's goofy, over-the-top narrative of chasing down leftover Nazis entirely. It's not one of Bear McCreary's best soundtracks, but he is so talented at making music that I am not surprised that overall this is the best soundtrack out of the 3 games. I changed my mind. I'm editing this video right now, and I change it to Call of Duty World War II as the best soundtrack. Bear McCreary does a great job on this, but nah, fam. Call of Duty World War II's got a goated soundtrack. That theme, immaculate. On the bright side as well, this also feels like the same game across all categories, zombies, multiplayer, and campaign, which is better than the past 2 games when it comes up to that. There's some minor differences, but nothing super obvious, like you don't get character abilities, but that would be ridiculous to have in multiplayer anyway. The real question is, though, is not if the multiplayer and the zombies feel like the campaign gameplay, but are they actually good? Because it sounds like this will be the best out of the 3. No. Honestly, might be the most forgettable thing I've played in a while next to the campaign of Black Ops 3 and Call of Duty 3. There's not really that much talk about this game surrounding its multiplayer and its zombies. It really is just forgettable and boring. Blitz and tactical mode in the multiplayer was a cool idea, but it killed half the player base. The game isn't dead, but it takes forever to find a match. This game flexes how many maps it had before it came out, but it's the only Call of Duty game I could not tell you a single map name, and I don't even remember their layouts, and it hasn't even been a year since release. Even the favorited maps like Das Haus only really work in Blitz mode because they're so small, so it would be useless to do them in tactical mode. It's funny too, because even though this one is more lighthearted than Sledgehammer's World War II games, it's by far way less colorful and the grossest looking game of the Resurgence period. And I don't mind that it's gross looking, but I feel like that a game this goofy and this much fun should be colorful, whereas the color palette from this game should have been in Call of Duty's 2017 World War II game. I mean, even the color palette to Cold War would have helped. Once again, though, not much to say about it. Multiplayer is not insultingly bad, and usually Sledgehammer listens to community feedback and makes fixes when it is nice to see. It's just forgettable, and the maps do not help. It feels very samey, and I don't even remember so many of the maps, and it's only been a bit over a year, almost 2 years. It's crazy. But speaking of boring, you want to talk about boring? Let's talk about zombies. After Sledgehammer announced there wouldn't be an Easter egg quest in zombies, that already made Easter egg people mad, but it did nothing to me. I was wondering if I was gonna like this, so what did I think? I mean this, I really do. This is the worst zombies the series has ever seen. There's 2 new maps, they range from meh to awful. Open zombie maps just don't do it for me. You at least need a balance like Ascension or Doris. Some open areas, but also a lot of confined spaces where it can get super intense, but you got the open areas where you got the mystery box and all this other stuff. These open areas you gotta run through with your groups of friends to be able to get to the smaller, confined, intense areas where you can dwindle out all the zombies into one hallway. We have 2 other maps that got added into the game, and one is just a shitty objective mode of a previous map that was already mentioned, and the other is just Shino Numa from World at War with an added area. And I love that map, but it's just because it's from World at War. Probably the most underdeveloped thing they've done across all 3 games. Look at Black Ops 1 Moon. The start of it, immediately captivating. It makes me want to figure out what's happening here. I don't even care about the Easter eggs. I just want to get into this little teleporter thing, whatever, and then go into anti-grav flying around. Ascension, it's black and white. Oh man, what's going on? Where's all the color? And then my guy even comments on it sometimes. I don't even care about the Easter eggs, but the environments are so damn cool that you have so much going on for the player to engage with and see and think about and be captivated in. Unlike this map, where you're just outside. And I mean, there's like a dude, I guess, who's like talking to you, but I don't even know what's going on. You're just being told to do certain objectives. And the map's just boring. It's just this big map. I mean, like, compare it to Shinonuma, which they literally have in this game. There's 4 different perk areas. It's tight. You slow down in the water, which adds intensity, giving you an objective to avoid the water. There's traps that work with the environment and are disguised with the environment. You have to figure out where these traps are, and it's awesome. These traps, this environment feels unique to Shinonuma. These 2 original maps don't even feel iconic, unique in any possible way. They feel like empty open areas with just a couple of buildings and random spots. I couldn't even describe what these places are without just saying desert, town. This darker town map is slightly better than the desert, but it's like comparing shit to shit with a cherry on top. I don't normally like to be really mean on this channel. I don't want to be really mean. And I will never talk meaner about a zombies than this zombies, with the exception of the paywall zombies in Advanced Warfare. This is just the worst zombies in the entire series, and it's not even close. The only competition to these maps is Shangri-La in Black Ops 1 and Farm in Black Ops 2. I'll take it over Advanced Warfare that didn't even have zombies. But it's so obvious that either Sledgehammer did not make this or they just did not care. I'm pretty sure Treyarch made it, and so they were probably too busy working on their next game and just didn't care. They just churned out some random zombies mode. There's objective modes as well, and these are fine, but they're basically just Easter eggs, except you're not actually figuring out the Easter egg, which is what the hunters want to do. It's just going to harass you the whole time to keep you up with the objective until you get to do exfil by yourself, which you can do within like 10 minutes. And if I'm wrong, just like World War II, then please correct me in the comments, talk to me, because I'm not one of these Easter egg hunters. I don't know about all the stuff, but I know what the developers said, and I'm going off of my own experience with this game. This zombie seems abysmal, and Vanguard may be my second favorite out of these 3 games due to the campaign alone, which says a lot about the campaign, but says nothing about anything else. And that's it. Well, temporary, that's like a fourth of it. Sledgehammer Games. You lovely disjointed identity crisis of a company. I'm gonna be nice to them for a minute and say Sledgehammer Games has had the short end of the stick for their entire time with Activision, and it's just obvious from an outside viewer. They do listen to the community, they do have fantastic presentation in their campaigns, they do have great pacing, and I do fully believe that they can create a great COD game. They're usually held down by Activision time and time again, and it looks like that'll happen again with Modern Warfare 3 unless they truly wanted to actually make the game. In the beginning, I said that Sledgehammer Games has an identity crisis. And in theory, this is why I think that is. Sledgehammer Games, Glenn, and Michael all came to Activision with the proposition to make a third-person Call of Duty game that was similar to games like Uncharted. They never got around to being able to make this game. I think that Glenn and Michael, and this is just a theory, but I think Glenn and Michael wanted to be able to make more original Call of Duty games, spice things up in the Call of Duty franchise, but then they got appointed to making the same exact generic Call of Duty games as Infinity Ward and Treyarch, and that was because they proved that they were able to make these games with helping on Modern Warfare 3. I don't think that they really want to make Call of Duty. I just think that they proposed that to Activision so they could sell their ideas, sell their third-person Uncharted-esque game. And this is even more proven by the fact that Glenn and Michael didn't even stay with the company in the first place. And this is all speculative. I'm not saying that any of this is fact. And I don't think anybody here I don't think you should be blaming Activision. Activision just wants to make Call of Duty games, and I don't think that you should be blaming Glenn or Michael. I think that in the end of the day, these are just people that went their separate ways because they wanted different things for Sledgehammer Games, but in the end of the day, I just want Sledgehammer Games to be able to make what they want to make. Because due to all of this, and due to where Sledgehammer Games is now being the subpar Call of Duty developer, it all feels like they are not confident in what they're doing, and that they are just in an identity crisis. I want them to figure out what they can bring to the table that these other 2 companies aren't already bringing, because if they don't bring anything, then just stop doing annual releases. Let Sledgehammer make their own games that are not Call of Duty based and just go to bi-yearly releases with Treyarch and Infinity Ward. Join me in my breakdown for the Treyarch Call of Duty games next, then after that Infinity Ward, and then finally Modern Warfare 3 and the ending of my series, which probably will not come out until the end of December. I will also do a separate video ranking all the different aspects of these games, from which ones are good to bad, to ranking their campaigns against one another in a tier list, to ranking their zombies against one another, and all their multiplayers. I will do these all separately because Call of Duty games are a mess with all this stuff, but then I'll also rank them all against each other as overall games. I hope that the next two Call of Duty videos are honestly less negative than this one. This one was very cynical, very negative, and I really don't want to preach about that all the time on a channel called Appreciation Culture. I do really like Sledgehammer Games. I think the developers are great there. I think the animators are great. I think that what they're trying to do is ambitious. I just don't think that they did exactly a good job on these games, and I also think these are some of the worst Call of Duties out there, and it's just hard to remain so positive about them for an entire video. But alas, I do want to talk about every single one of these games, and I do want to talk about the good stuff about all of these Call of Duty games, even if there's not much. Do all the YouTube stuff for me for sure. I really appreciate you sticking around, even if you just listen to me during your car ride, because this is a long video. Join the appreciation culture and become a true appreciator of art. If I have dissed one of your favorite COD games, please leave a comment and tell me what you appreciate the most about it, because we can always use a bit more positivity in the world, especially with stuff that people just hate in art. Thank you for watching, Appreciators, and this has been Appreciation Culture, where we will be appreciating every little piece of art out there. And Activision, if you're watching, just let them make their own fucking video game. They're good at their jobs, and we can appreciate their video games as well.